The majority of invested capital on earth is held by sovereign and pension plans, about 90+% of it. They own zero crypto, nothing. And so for all the excitement about Bitcoin, 800 billion, that is absolutely a giant nothing burger. It is totally irrelevant. Because the largest economy on earth is financial services. I think crypto will be the 12th sector of the economy within 10 years because it adds so much liquidity, so much productivity, so much transparency, so much auditability. It's so much better than what we're doing right now, which is so expensive and so slow. If I want to transfer capital over to Zurich to buy Nestle stock in Swiss francs, it takes me days. And it costs me a fortune, and it's incredibly inefficient. I could do it in 2 seconds with a stable coin, and I can't yet because we don't have policy on both sides of the ocean that let me do that, but it's coming one day. And I think crypto and blockchain and the services and financial transactions, microtransactions, all of it are going to lend itself to this blockchain auditability, transparency, the ledger system. It all makes sense to me. And I think regulators are starting to figure that out. I have no idea which ones will win over the next 5 years, but I don't need them all to win. I just need a few to win. And that's what diversification is all about. And I've made some investments in the infrastructure. You know that old adage in the gold rush, you were better owning and selling picks and shovels and jeans than you were trying to find gold, because that was very hard to do. The infrastructure of crypto are companies like FTX, I'm a shareholder, Circle, I'm a shareholder, Wonderfy, I'm a shareholder, Immutable Holdings, I'm a shareholder. I've given money to all of these projects because they make a lot of sense to me and I use them all. And they're centralized, decentralized. There's stable coins in there. There's the FTX platform, which is the first compliant institutional platform I can find that my auditors and my compliance department finally agree to let me use to store value. The majority of invested capital on earth is held by sovereign and pension plans, about 90+% of it. They own zero crypto, nothing. And so for all the excitement about Bitcoin, 800 billion, that is absolutely a giant nothing burger. It is totally irrelevant. It's not held by any institutions that matter. Now, I'm an indexer, and I've talked about this many, many times. There's many indexers in the world, but we service sovereign funds, pension plans. Let's say you're an oil-rich country in the Middle East. You're making 250 million cash a day, US dollars, in oil revenues. You don't want to reinvest in oil. You want to invest in every other sector. So they'll go to an indexer like me and say, index the S&P 500, less energy, less airlines. That's the kind of index we do. And so we see these fund flows, trillions of dollars of fund flows every year just going through the system. Indexers see that every 24 hours. And I always ask these institutions and these sovereign funds, what allocation would you put into Bitcoin? Just one. Bitcoin, which is the granddaddy digital asset, everybody knows that. What would you allocate if you could? And they said, well, we can't because our compliance department won't allow it, because the SEC hasn't ruled on it yet, and Larry Fink doesn't like it, and he's our biggest money manager, and all those other reasons. But they would allocate 50 to 100 basis points. Now, when you're running a $1 trillion mandate or an $800 billion mandate, which is some of the size of these funds, that's a ton of money. And that's a huge amount of demand that would come into the market. And as Bitcoin prices went past that 1% allocation, let's say, they'd sell it back down to 1%. But just importantly, if it dropped below 1%, they'd buy it back up. So there'd be an eternal bid forever. The volatility would drop dramatically. There'd be price appreciation in Bitcoin. It would be good for everybody involved in crypto. But we can't do it without policy. And so everybody should just get off this, let's be rogue, let's be crypto cowboys. Forget all that crap. It's time to get this real and get a tremendous amount of capital going into crypto because it's policy and it gets regulated and it's good for everybody. Well, you know, I give an example that everybody can relate to, because in the early years of Amazon 18 years ago, I was a shareholder both in the equity and in the preference shares they used to have in those days. That stock corrected every 12 to 18 months between 38 and 58% every single year, over and over and over again. People just couldn't get their heads around what Amazon was doing. And it continued that way for a decade. It's no different than what's going on right now with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies because there's no institutional demand yet for the product. People keep saying institutions are involved, but they're not at all. But the point is, as an investor, Do you want to be ahead of this or behind it? Because I think what happens is you get a binary increase in the value of crypto the minute people even sense policy. And that's going to happen sometime Jan, Feb, March. And so I want to be positioned before then. You don't have to, but I think it's the way to go in terms of being early and nascent. It's like being involved in the internet in its most early days. Same thing is going on here. Long term, it's a great investment. But boy, volatility, yeah, it's tough. 50% up, 50% down, 60% swings. Well, that was Amazon 12, 15 years ago. Now it's Bitcoin today.